Sometimes the loudest silence is the one after you say exactly what no one expects. Let us know in the comment section below, what do you think those 5 words were? Peter Winfield hated being noticed. He had gotten good at disappearing into a crowd, fading into silence, mastering the art of being present without drawing attention. That was a skill honed not just from years in the Marine Corps, but from what came after. After the uniform, after the adrenaline, after the ceremony, where they pinned medals to his chest and sent him back to a world that no longer made sense. Now he kept to himself. Most mornings started the same: black coffee, 1 sugar, half-listened radio static, and a 2-mile walk down the same route through the edge of the neighborhood, past the dog park, past the corner store, past the broken light pole that no one ever fixed. No one bothered Peter. No one asked questions. And that was exactly how he wanted it. But something shifted the day she showed up. Jessica Monroe. He'd learned her name weeks ago, overheard it from a too-loud conversation between the local food pantry volunteers. Army veteran, Afghanistan, quiet. No family, lived out of her pickup, and had a dog that followed her like a shadow. She was the kind of person Peter recognized immediately, not from face or name, but from posture. The way she scanned every room twice before sitting, the way her back never quite touched the chair, the way she flinched when a car backfired 2 blocks away and thought no one saw. The experience, Peter saw. He also saw the way people didn't see her, the way they averted their gaze when she parked behind the laundromat, the way the manager at the 24-hour diner stopped offering free coffee, the way the new neighbors whispered loud enough to be overheard, complaining about another one of those in their neighborhood. Peter heard it all, and he kept quiet. Until today. She wasn't supposed to be there, in the alley behind Marcus's auto body. It wasn't her usual spot. But maybe the rain last night flooded out her usual one, or maybe she was just tired of hiding. Either way, Peter didn't expect to see her, not crumpled on the wet pavement, not with her arms raised in the air, not with 4 officers shouting commands so loud they overlapped into white noise, and not with one of them raising a yellow taser and firing. No warning, no countdown, no chance to comply. She hit the pavement hard, body twisting unnaturally as volts surged through her. Her dog barked, a vicious, guttural sound Peter had never heard from that animal, and was instantly muzzled and leashed by one of the officers, dragged backward as Jessica twitched on the concrete. Peter stopped breathing. The sound around him vanished. Just for a moment, everything collapsed into a narrow tunnel, her face contorted in pain, the officer's boots stomping forward, the echo of barked orders no longer registering. People stood nearby. No one moved. He took 1 step forward, then another, and then one of the cops turned toward him. Young, built, trigger fingers tense, even though the danger was already paralyzed on the ground. "Back up, sir. This doesn't concern you." Peter said nothing, but he kept walking. Back up now. Still, nothing. He didn't flinch. His eyes weren't on the officer. They were on Jessica. Her hand trembled, reaching for nothing, blinking hard as she fought to stay conscious. And that's when Peter saw it. The patch sewn onto her jacket, faded, half-torn, but unmistakable. 3rd Infantry Division. He stopped, straightened his back. Every inch of him clicked back into alignment like some switch deep inside had flipped. All at once he was Staff Sergeant Winfield again, the ghost of a man who'd walked through Fallujah, through Helmand, through nightmares he still hadn't unpacked. Not for anyone. Not until now. "She's a veteran," he said, quietly. Just loud enough to slice through the confusion. The officer closest to him rolled his eyes. "Sir, move." "She's a combat veteran. Still calm. Still low." Another officer approached him. "Look, we don't have time for this," she resisted. Darrell hesitated. Peter's voice was still steady, still cold, but it carried in a way that made the youngest officer take a half-step back. "Sir, this isn't your—" And that's when Peter finally looked the squad leader straight in the eyes. He said 5 words, plain, delivered like an order, and they froze. Even the one with the taser still in hand, sweat now dotting his forehead, even the one holding the dog leash who suddenly realized how tight it had been pulled, even the woman officer who'd been shouting into her radio. Everyone stopped. Jessica was wheezing now, every breath a knife. Peter kneeled beside her, slowly, deliberately, hands open. He didn't look back up at the squad. He just whispered, loud enough for her and no one else, "They don't see you yet, but I do." And then he reached for her hand. It wasn't over, not even close, but the moment had broken. The chaos had cracked. Now came the reckoning. There was a heaviness in the way they looked at him now, not fear, not exactly, but hesitation. Peter Winfield could read it in their stance, the way they shifted weight between feet, the way their hands no longer hovered near batons and triggers. They were trying to assess him, not as a civilian, as a variable, and they were right to be cautious. The woman officer finally broke the silence. "Sir, you need to step away." This woman was non-compliant. She matched the description from— "She's not a suspect," Peter cut in, never raising his voice. "She's a veteran with documented PTSD. You hit her before she even had time to process what you were saying. That's not your call to make." Peter turned his head slowly to face her. "No. But it'll be the call of every civil rights lawyer from here to D.C. once I send the footage." He reached into his pocket with deliberate slowness. Not for a weapon, but for his phone. He held it up. Not recording. Yet. The implied threat hung thick in the air. The officers exchanged glances. Someone behind Peter was filming, though. He could sense it. The quiet murmur of a phone being unholstered. The collective breath of a dozen witnesses finally daring to inhale again. Peter gently squeezed Jessica's shoulder. She groaned softly, but didn't speak. Her eyes fluttered, trying to hold on. "Help's coming," he whispered. One of the younger officers stepped aside and muttered into his shoulder radio. Another began walking in a slow arc, trying to establish a perimeter, control the narrative. But it was already slipping. Peter stood. "You got medics on the way?" The squad leader, stocky, square-jawed, late 30s, nodded tersely. "ETF 5. "You're lucky." "What did you say?" "I said, you're lucky. Because if she goes into cardiac arrest, if she hits her head and doesn't wake up, this isn't a suspension or desk duty, it's charges. Federal." The leader bristled. "You threatening a law enforcement officer?" Peter stared at him, unblinking. "You threaten someone who served this country better than you'll ever understand. I'm reminding you of what's at stake." The barking had stopped. Jessica's dog, Boone, Peter remembered now, was silent but straining against the leash, teeth bared, low growl rumbling. A soldier's dog, loyal beyond reason. One of the officers holding him loosened his grip and the leash slackened, but Boone didn't run. He just moved slowly toward Jessica's side, lay down and rested his head near her arm. Finally, Jessica stirred. She coughed, winced, then tried to push herself up before collapsing again. "Hey," Peter crouched beside her. "Don't move, just stay down. You're okay now?" She blinked at him, confused. "Do I know you?" "No," he said softly. "But I know you." She let her head rest again, eyes wet now from more than just pain. "I thought they were going to shoot me," she whispered. Peter looked up. The officers were no longer looming. They were standing back, unsure of their own authority, unsure of the cameras, unsure of themselves. He felt no triumph in that. Just a hollow fatigue. "You're safe now, I promise." The medics arrived in a blur of navy blue and latex gloves. They asked questions, moved quickly. One checked her vitals. Another rolled her onto her side and asked her name, her allergies, the date. She got most of it right. Peter stepped back to give them space, but didn't leave. As they worked, the officer with the taser walked over, his hands twitchy, a nervous tick playing at the corner of his mouth. We didn't know she was military. Peter turned slowly. That supposed to make it better? No, Look, we got a call. Someone said there was a woman casing the garage, a transient. We responded, and when you saw her hands were empty, what did you do? Wait? De-escalate? Ask a question? The officer didn't answer. You know what I saw? Peter stepped in closer, his voice still calm. I saw a soldier, on the edge, flinching under barked orders like she was back in Kabul. I saw her hesitate for 2 seconds, and you pulled the trigger. The officer opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. Peter softened. Barely. Do better. Before you put someone in the ground. The medics had Jessica stabilized now. Boone was being gently held by one of the EMTs, who offered him a water bottle cap to drink from. Peter stepped forward. She have anywhere to go? One of them asked. Peter looked down at her. No, he answered for her. The medic nodded. Hospital first. She needs to be monitored overnight, but they'll release her if her heart rhythm stays clean. Then what? Peter paused, looked up at the officers still standing around like confused statues. Then he looked at the growing crowd, neighborhood faces, strangers. Someone who looked like a city official whispering into a headset. They'll figure it out, Peter said, finally. One of the cops, the woman who'd barked the first orders, walked over. Look, you want to file a complaint? Internal Affairs will need your statement. Peter raised an eyebrow. I'm not giving a statement. She nodded slowly, surprised. You're not? No, he said. I'm giving a press conference, tonight. On record. You can let the chief know. She blinked. Peter stepped closer. Let me be clear. This doesn't disappear with a form and a badge number. What happened today is going to be part of a much bigger conversation about how we treat our veterans, about how we police trauma, about what we've decided looks dangerous when someone's just trying to survive. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You'll see me again. He turned before she could reply. The medics had loaded Jessica onto the gurney, securing her gently. Boone was being led into the back of the ambulance with her, a rare courtesy. Peter followed them to the back, hands in his jacket pockets. You sure about this? The medic asked. You're not family. Peter looked at Jessica, who managed a small nod. I am now, he said. The doors shut. As the ambulance pulled away, Peter turned back to face the squad, still standing like they were waiting for permission to move. They looked different now. Not humbled, just exposed. Like they'd seen something they couldn't unsee and now had to live with it. Peter adjusted his jacket collar. It was going to be a long week. Peter had always believed in clean exits. In his Marine days, they drilled into him that the best op was the one you slipped in and out of without fanfare. Leave no trace, get home safe. But civilian life was messier, and sometimes there was no clean exit, only aftershocks that kept following you around. Days later, in the form of phone calls, whispers, or, in this case, a knock at the door he hadn't heard in 3 years. He opened it slowly. Jessica Monroe stood on his front step. A hospital bracelet still clung to her wrist, tucked beneath the sleeve of a donated hoodie 2 sizes too big. Her face was pale but steady, eyes a little sunken from lack of sleep. Beside her, Boone sat like a soldier, alert and still, his leash looped through her wrist. Peter took one look and didn't ask why she was there. He stepped aside. She walked in. The house was simple, Spartan. Wooden floors, no rugs. Books stacked neatly on low shelves. A single armchair near the window, and a couch with cushions too stiff to have ever hosted real company. She moved like someone testing the ground with every step, like the wrong word might make the floor give out. "You're not easy to find," she said finally, voice gravel rough. "I try not to be," Peter replied, then pointed toward the couch. "Sit. You hungry?" She hesitated. "Not really." Peter nodded and disappeared into the kitchen anyway. Jessica lowered herself onto the couch with a low hiss of pain and gently guided Boone to lie at her feet. The silence in the room stretched wide, comfortable for him, unfamiliar for her. When Peter returned, he handed her a cup of hot black tea, not bothering to offer sugar or lemon. She took it without a word. They sat in silence for nearly 5 minutes before she spoke again. "You knew what to say." Peter didn't respond. "Bait day. You said something. 5 words." And they listened. His jaw tightened. Sometimes words work, sometimes they don't. "Well, whatever you said, it worked. They froze like statues, even the loud one. I've seen that look before, on both sides of the line." Jessica sipped the tea slowly. Her fingers shook a little as she held the mug. She didn't seem to notice. "Do you ever have a moment you replay in your head, over and over, like your brain can't decide if it wants to forget or remember it better?" Peter's gaze didn't shift. "Every day." Jessica nodded. "Same." She didn't cry. She didn't break. But Peter recognized the signs. Small tremors in her voice, that unfocused stare, like she was watching footage from a memory no one else could see. "I don't even remember getting tased, just their voices, barking all at once. I froze, my knees locked, and my hands went halfway up, and then I heard the snap and felt... Gosh, it was like my brain exploded." Peter leaned forward, elbows on knees. "They were looking for a threat. They didn't care if you were one." "Exactly." Boone whined softly, and Jessica reached down to scratch behind his ears. "I kept thinking, I made it through Kandahar and Fallujah, but I'm gonna die behind a damn garage in California. That's where my brain went. Isn't that sick?" "No," Peter said. "It's muscle memory. We survive what we train for." Jessica looked up. "And what happens when no one trains us for this part?" Peter had no answer. The silence returned, but heavier now. Jessica set the tea down and leaned back. Boone stretched out, putting his head on her foot like it was the most natural thing in the world. Peter stood and moved to the window. "There's going to be fallout," he said without turning around. "I know. The department's already spinning. Their PIO's been on every local channel trying to claim it was justified, saying, 'You lunged.' I barely moved. They'll say anything if there's no one to contradict them." She tilted her head. "You got the video?" "I got 6. He finally turned. 3 bystanders recorded it. 2 security cams from the alley, 1 from me. My neighbor's son is splicing them together." Jessica let out a low breath. "You're going to war with them?" "No." He sat back down, voice steady. "We are." Her brow furrowed. "You sure? You showed up. You already made your choice." She didn't respond right away. But Peter didn't need her to. By nightfall, the living room had transformed into a makeshift mission planning center. A laptop hummed on the table, cords snaking across the floor. Folded documents, statements, still images from the footage, timestamps, were spread out like a tactical map. Jessica hovered over the screen, eyes scanning, posture shifting back into a stance Peter hadn't seen since they left the wire. "They said my name wrong on the news," she muttered. "Called me Miss Monroe, never mentioned I was Staff Sergeant Monroe. It's like they erased the part that made me human." Peter leaned closer. "Then let's remind them." He clicked play on the footage. Frame by frame, Jessica watched herself collapse under the taser's charge. Her face flinched. Boone let out a low grumble. But she didn't look away. "They need to see this," she said. "They will," Peter promised. The next morning, the video dropped. No logos, no commentary, just 47 seconds of raw footage. Then a title card. Her name is Staff Sergeant Jessica Monroe. And this is what happened. Within hours, it had crossed 100,000 views. By lunch, national outlets were calling. A local law student wrote an op-ed titled, "From Combat to Concrete, How We Fail Our Veterans." Hashtags began to trend. The department issued a second statement, more cautious this time. An internal review had been opened. Peter ignored the noise. Jessica didn't. She read every comment, every message, every note from strangers who said, "I saw you, I believe you," and something in her posture began to change. That night, as they sat on Peter's back porch under a sky of low-hanging stars, she finally asked the question that had been circling her mind. "Work? What did you say to them?" Peter exhaled slowly. He said, "She outranks all of you." Jessica blinked, then, surprisingly, laughed. Not a bitter laugh, a real one, short, sharp, genuine. Peter let himself smile for the first time in days. "Damn right I do," she muttered, staring out into the dark. Boone barked once, as if in agreement. The night, for the first time in a long time, felt calm. The city council building was packed. Reporters lined the walls, their cameras already recording, lenses trained on the podium. Rows of civilians filled the chamber, some veterans, some neighbors, a few unfamiliar faces drawn by what they'd seen online. Some carried handwritten signs, "Respect all who served." Others simply stood, arms crossed, waiting. A quiet current of tension moved through the room like a held breath. Peter stood at the back, arms folded. He didn't want to be front and center. He'd done his part already. His voice had started the echo. Now it was Jessica's turn. She stepped up to the podium, boots steady against the polished wood, flanked by Boone on one side and a folded American flag resting gently in her arm. She didn't wear a uniform. She hadn't in years, but her stance made it unnecessary. The room hushed. "Good evening," she said, her voice strong. "My name is Staff Sergeant Jessica Monroe. I served in the United States Army for nearly a decade. I deployed to combat zones 3 times. I lost friends. I saw things I wish I could forget. And I came home expecting something I didn't find." She paused, let that word hang there. "Not because I wanted thanks, not because I thought I was special, but because I believed, foolishly maybe, that my service would buy me one small thing, the benefit of the doubt." A few heads nodded. Someone near the front sniffled quietly. "Hey." A day behind Marcus's garage. I wasn't a threat. I wasn't breaking in. I wasn't even moving fast. I was just looking for a place to rest. The squad that rolled up didn't see a veteran. They saw a problem to solve. And they solved it with volts. Jessica's voice didn't crack. She didn't falter. "I'm not here to scream. I'm not here to vilify. I'm here to remind." She reached into her pocket and held up her old dog tags. They meant I'd risk my life for this country, that I'd run toward gunfire, that I'd stand in the way so others didn't have to. But out here, in this city, they mean nothing unless we make them mean something. Silence. One cameraman lowered his gear slightly. His hands were shaking. "I am not the first veteran to be hurt by the system, but I want to be the last to walk away from it silently." Jessica turned to look at Peter, then nodded. "And I wouldn't be here today if someone hadn't remembered what those 5 words meant." She didn't repeat them. She didn't need to. "I'm asking this city, this council, this community, don't let what happened to me be just another viral clip. Let it be policy. Let it be training. Let it be change. Let it be the reason the next officer hesitates before pulling that trigger. And let it be a reminder. Not all battles happen overseas. Applause didn't come immediately, it wasn't that kind of speech, but when it started, it rolled through the room like a wave. Not polite, not restrained, but real. Jessica stepped back, Boone rising to follow her. She didn't smile. She saluted. Peter caught her outside afterward. "You meant every word," he said. She gave a small shrug. "I meant every pause, too." They walked together down the front steps of the building. Boone trotted ahead, tail wagging like the air had lightened around them. The sun was beginning to dip below the skyline, smearing the city in gold. "Got a call today," she said. Vet housing opened up in West Marlow. 2-year program. Counseling. Job placement. Real deal. Peter raised an eyebrow. "And? I took it." He nodded, slow and approving. "Good. You need something of your own, do you?" she added. "When's the last time you let someone in?" He chuckled. "You count?" "No, I bulldozed my way in. Let in." Peter didn't answer right away. He watched Boone roll in the grass ahead of them like a fool. Watched the way Jessica stood a little taller than she had the week before. "There was a time I thought I was done," he said. "Done speaking up. Done standing in the line of fire." Jessica looked at him sideways. "And now? I think I'm just getting started." Back at Peter's house, the porch light flickered on as the sun disappeared. Jessica took the folded flag from under her arm and laid it gently on the table. She pulled something else from her bag. A weathered patch, frayed at the edges. The insignia of the 3rd Infantry. She set it beside the flag. A gift. A marker. Peter stared at it. "I don't need it anymore," she said. "I carry it in other ways now." He gave her a single solemn nod. Boone flopped at their feet with a deep grunt, already half asleep. The porch was quiet. For once, it didn't feel heavy. Later, a reporter would write that the 5 words Peter said had rewritten the moment. Another would call them a line that shifted power. Neither would get it quite right. Because it wasn't about the words. It was about why he said them, when he said them, and who he said them for. "She outranks all of you." Simple. Precise. It reminded the world that respect isn't just salutes and speeches, it's presence, it's courage in small moments. It's standing when it's easier to stay seated. The footage kept spreading. Jessica's voice was used in training videos across 3 states within months. The local precinct issued a revised de-escalation policy. Her name was read at a veterans recognition gala she didn't even attend. Peter received a letter from someone anonymous. All it said was, "My brother served. I never understood what he was going through until I watched you step forward. Thank you." He taped it to the fridge. And one morning, weeks later, Peter walked his usual route. Same cracked sidewalk, same broken light pole. But this time someone had fixed the fixture. It shined clean, bright, like someone gave a damn. He passed by the alley, cleat down, quiet, but he still saw her there. Not the pain, not the moment, just the strength she'd carried, and it echoed, always would.